The third one, which I think we're both going to have a lot to say about here, is I'm calling it Luke's death as, like, I guess, the focal point. But really, it's The Last Jedi as a whole in a vague way. I think The Last Jedi is one of the top it's one of the movies that everyone has been really talking about. What's the other, like, biggest controversy movie? I would say it's like maybe Passion of the Christ, right? Or really a bunch of religious movies. But for some reason, The Last Jedi is one that's really up there for everybody to talk about. And we can go on all day about it. You can talk about what you want. I want to specifically talk about Luke's death. So Luke's death for me, it didn't work for me. It works for a lot of people. I, for one, didn't like the treatment of the character throughout the entire movie. I personally thought it wasn't in line with how this character has acted throughout all the other movies. I thought it was random. It didn't fit. It was kind of felt like a different character. You know, there's that hashtag not my Luke or whatever. But Luke's death was probably the biggest part of that whole movie for me that really bothered me, is that the fact that he died. You know, we spend this whole time trying to get to him, and when we do, it's not the person we used to know. He throws the lightsaber behind his back. And that's when all my dreams died. And as we start to, I don't know, that movie was really focused on Luke. One reason why it bothers me is it took away the story from Rey, I believe, which it shouldn't have been about Luke. I really didn't need to see more about Luke. I got his, they made it about him. So they told me to let the past die, yet they shoved it in my face and told me to change it. And then he died by doing what he's best at and what everyone knows him for, which is poetic and beautiful, but at the same time, it wasn't executed in the way I'd hoped. It's a huge problem I have. I've accepted it. I now can, like, you know, watch that, talk about it, and not get angry. But Luke's death for me in The Last Jedi was one of the biggest controversies I've had when talking with my friends and other people about this movie. What are some of yours? Is Luke death even one for you?
It made me tear up. I liked it at the time. Like, I'm one of the people that I'm more okay with Last Jedi than most people are. But like Luke's death, I did not like what they did to Luke. But with the reasoning and everything that I like, with the more knowledge you grasp through the books and everything, it can grow on you. And like him fearing that he was basically creating the possible rise up of the dark side again. I understood the fear. I don't understand cutting himself off from the Force. I don't understand him treating the lightsaber poorly and everything like that. Like, yes, in The Rise of Skywalker, they tried to fix that with him as a Force ghost. But my biggest gripe about Luke's death is he fades off. He died by fading off and giving into the Force, is the way that I kind of look at it. But Yoda, I know that he's the only other person that's just faded off, except for Leia now. But prior to that, it was just Yoda was the only person that their body just faded off. There's so many things that prove Yoda, though, was a ghost at the time. He was, Yoda himself could be theorized as traumatized as well, just like Luke was. But we know Luke was still alive is the difference. Yoda was traumatized, and he was living near a Sith not Sith artifact, but basically that strong Sith presence in that cave being right there to hide his Force sensitivity. But was it also just that was the dark side of him manipulated into life? But Yoda being still so good, he was still a good guy. It's not like he's evil.
Right.
And then once he finally kind of accepted Luke is the true heir, the true going to save the world, the galaxy, and the Jedi Order, that's when he faded. That now his purpose for still being around was done. And now he could truly give into the Force and be a Force ghost. But it was almost like he was a phantom at that point. While Luke was still alive and just kind of gave into it in a way that Luke wouldn't do. Luke is my favorite character. Luke is my favorite character throughout all of Star Wars. And the mentality's sake of the way they had Luke supposed to act, I understood it. The disrespect towards the things that Luke would love, protect with his life, that I hated. So it was like a weird in between.
I totally agree. Conceptually, I love every idea that Luke's character could have been in The Last Jedi. However, yes, in part with this controversy, some things that or other people have spoken on is the fact that his hand doesn't just fall down onto the rocks when he disappears, and that it disappears with him.
I haven't even thought about that one.
Which led some people to believe, in part of this controversy after episode 8, was that, well, maybe Luke wasn't dead. He just astral projected somewhere else, which we all know was negated back in when The Rise of Skywalker came out. But in part with this controversy, he says in The Rise of Skywalker, as a Force ghost, that's no way to treat a lightsaber. Some people would say, well, that's just showing his growth as a character. And other people say, no, that's JJ saying Ryan didn't tell the story right. And it's just like closing the door on him, like Ryan closed the door on JJ. So there's tons of different points of view, and that's what makes this a controversy and why people talk about it so much. Yeah. And there's so many more with The Last Jedi. If any of you guys want to hear more about what I have to think about The Last Jedi, then go back and listen. I did 2 discussions on it and 1 review, and with some guests, so you get other people's point of view on it. And don't worry, it's not just a hate rant. There's some good stuff in there too.